Welcome back. Another day, another day. Today, we have one of my favorite people from one of my favorite shows, but mostly just a good-hearted soul actor from Supernatural, Lost, Dexter, and the list goes on and on and on. And he also campaigns and does a lot of good for the world. But guys, before we get into it, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Follow on all audio podcast platforms, specifically Spotify, Apple, and Google. And then like, follow, subscribe, all that jazz, and consider becoming a patron of the show. But I don't want to waste too much time today. Let's just get them right in here. Welcome, Mark. Thank you so much for coming back.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me again.
Oh, of course. So you were telling me that you just made the move. You packed up, like a lot of people these days, as of right now. You made the move from California to Pittsburgh. I'm not to Pittsburgh.
Well, yes,
Pittsburgh?
yes. Well, I'm temporarily living in Pittsburgh. I'm living here until about August. So technically, I still have a home in California.
Okay.
My wife finally consented to moving from California, which it's been a bone of contention between the two of us. Not a hard bone, but a bone of contention between the two of us for the last 5 or 6 years.
Right.
I've wanted to move out as California was spiraling into the toilet, and I think the pandemic and all the crap that happened around that and the terrible way our state handled it and continues to handle it sort of convinced her that maybe California isn't the paradise that it used to be. So we're planning on moving. First, it was Austin, Texas. I know so many people have moved to Austin for various reasons, and but I not to say anything, not to cast aspersions on Texas, but I think my wife wouldn't want to live there. So we might be going to Nashville.
But Nashville's actually a nice place, and I've been to Texas. I kind of agree with your wife. I probably wouldn't live there. But it's a nice place to visit every once in a while. But like I said, it's not a place I would like bunker down and like make home. I just couldn't see myself living there. Actually, I was hoping to live in California one day because I love it there. But like you said, and a lot of people, like for instance Joe Rogan, all of his comedic friends, they've picked up from LA and left and gone to Austin, like you just said. So that seems to be the blue state. Was it blue there, right? It's kind of like the rest of the world.
It's a blue section of the red state, but I think they've got, political and intellectual diversity there. I mean, when people say diversity, they don't mean it. They mean sort of a leftist hack. It's you gotta buy the critical theory sort of idea about everything. And I'm not buying it. And Austin sort of splits that territory where you have liberalism, the way I like it, and you have culture and music and film, and it's a robust, vibrant, diverse atmosphere, and you get the additional benefits of a state that doesn't want to breathe down your neck and rob you.
Right, exactly. You said that how's work been going in the pandemic? Like as far as like finding new jobs. I mean, for an actor like you, I'm sure it's a little bit easier than, say someone who's just entering the industry. But how is it? Is it getting any better, or is it staying the same? What's the playing field right now?
Well, I mean, for an actor like me, I'm controversial. So for me, at any point, I feel like somebody could bring something up from my past that could get me canceled, even though there's nothing there. That doesn't matter. They make it something, and what matters is not what's there, but the narrative they create. And so for me, who's open about my politics, I'm open about my ethics. Because I think the conversation has to be public. I think there's a lot of confusion out there and nihilism and cynicism, and we in the public sector have a sort of responsibility to fight that. That works against me in some respects and for me in others. Yeah. I had a job right before the pandemic that got pushed So I'm here now in this wonderful state,
Mhm.
Pennsylvania. Is Pennsylvania the Keystone State? And I'm hopefully we'll work here until August, till somewhere around the end of August, and we'll see what happens with the show. It's great folks associated with the show, great actors.
Is it is it public already? Like, is the show known? Like, do we know what it is? I tried to look. I did. I tried to look for it, but I couldn't find necessarily like a pinpoint for it.
I'm gonna keep you in the dark.
All right, all right.
I'm gonna make it
I
a
wasn't.
surprise.
Yeah, I wasn't because we like to like boast ourselves as the person that's like, I'm not trying to get you to say something you shouldn't. But I was actually interested because I was like, I wonder if it's been like announced yet. So I went looking and I couldn't find it, and I was like, oh, maybe it's something that's like something I just overlooked or missed. So I apologize. I don't mean to like pry or anything because I don't like to do that.
Pry away, pry away.
Oh God. But so I was gonna save this for last, but just to like do a little like icebreaker session. I've had you on before. We've asked like the basic questions, like the things that you open with, right? We talked about, so the first time around we talked about Lost and how your wife kind of talked you into it, I believe. Your wife was like, you need to take this role. We talked about Supernatural. I'd like to talk about Supernatural a little bit more. But I was wondering if to break the ice, do you like the superhero genre? Because the Snyder Cut or the mythic Justice League, the Snyder Cut of Justice League, like I've been interested to see, like, asking different celebrities or actors or anyone in the industry, like, do you know what's going on with that? Do you pay attention to it at all?
I don't. I
No.
do like the superhero genre, but
Okay.
I don't pay too close attention to it.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because like Amy Adams is in the movies and she has no idea that there was a campaign to get this movie released. So like it was like, huh, if she doesn't know, like how many people are actually aware of it? And I think that's the problem with what went on behind the scenes at Warner Brothers. And
Well, tell me, because I'm clueless, and now
so
there's a huge controversy I don't
yeah,
know about.
it is. It's a sad thing. I just know I don't want to like, because you've worked with Warner Brothers before, and it has a lot to do with Warner Brothers.
Okay.
And so Zack Snyder was doing the DC Extended Universe, which is the equivalent to the Marvel Universe, but for DC Comics: Batman, Superman, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, etc., etc. And he got 2 movies in, and the studio was not liking the way it was going. It was tonally too dark, and they were looking across the bay over to Marvel Studios, and they weren't pulling in $1 billion per movie, right? And they were wondering why that they have these great movies made by such a visionary director. Why weren't they pulling in the same cash that, say, Avengers was? So they wanted to mix it up, but Zack Snyder was like, no, I'd like to keep my own vision, my own stories, and I'd like to do it. So they had a conflict of how the story should be told. There should be more jokes, yada, yada, yada. And then Zack Snyder's daughter committed suicide. So he had to step away from the project.
How old was she?
She was 18 to 22, somewhere in that range. She was very young, very young. She had a life ahead of her. She was doing a lot for charity. She was, her name's Autumn Snyder, and she was a good person. She was just battling demons. And the reason that it ties to what you and I are speaking about today is the Supernatural cast has done so much for mental illness, mental, people that are struggling with depression, and the same kind of feelings. So I didn't know if there was any, like, if anyone was watching what was going on, because it was truly, it's a remarkable story. So she kills herself. She commits suicide, tragedy, and Warner Brothers uses that to kind of push Zach out the door, right? And bring in a new director and someone who, she was 20 years old. Thank you, Caden. So I was right though. So they use the death of his daughter to push him out. He needs to step away to grieve with his family. They use this opportunity to bring in Joss Whedon, who directed the Avengers, to slap it all together, make it funny. And then the movie bombed. 2017's Justice League was a terrible film. And word got out that there was a mythic Snyder cut, a cut of the movie that Zack had finished. However, he didn't get to actually put together before he stepped away. So for 3.5 years, the Snyder Cut community raised $500,000 for suicide prevention. They campaigned. They put billboards up at San Diego Comic-Con, New York's Times Square. The whole nine. People were donating left and right. And it brought a community together in a world that's so torn apart, right? And wow. It was remarkable. Finally, HBO Max gets done, right? HBO Max comes out, and it's this new thing. They're separate from Warner Brothers' parent company. They're Warner Media, Warner Max. And they finally greenlit the movie. So we're going to get the mythic 4-hour cut of Justice League the way Zack always intended it. But Warner Brothers is trying to bog it down, and they're trying to play it off like it's nothing. They won't market for it. They won't really talk about it. They want it to be over with, and they don't want to hire Zack to do any more films. So it's been this battle between creative freedom and studio interference. So, it's historic, right? Because, I mean, when a director comes in, you kind of want that director to be able to, you hired him for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. Let him do his job, right? He's here to deliver the content that you had envisioned, but let him do his job. So I don't mean to go off on that tangent, but there's a lot more to the story. There's a lot more drama. We don't need to get into that. But Warner Brothers has been really shady about this whole thing. Really, makes you question, because they were a studio that built themselves on, bringing directors in, letting them express themselves in a safe environment. And there was a lot of racism behind the scenes, and it's dangerous. It is dangerous. How was your experience working with Warner Brothers?
Well, I mean, after that, I feel funny saying that I had a good experience with them. Every time I've worked with them, I've never experienced deceit or cheapness or any underhanded activity on their part. They've always seemed forthright, and they've always worked with me on my terms. Yeah. And I have nothing but good things to say about them. It's unfortunate to see that this has turned out so tragically, especially at such a time in Zack's life. Was it only the fact that his movies weren't producing the kinds of revenue that they wanted, or was there something else in the mix? Was it difficulty working in the relationship? Was there something in his belief set that rubbed them the wrong way? Do you know?
Actually, for the most part, Zack's sets, people are always saying, and Warner Brothers has even come out and said it, that his sets, when you go to visit a set with Zack Snyder, it's a happy place. People are laughing, they're getting along. So, and Zack's very free spirited and allows his actors and actresses, cast and crew all alike to kind of express themselves in a safe environment. So that was not the issue. The issue is Warner Brothers got greedy, and they were looking over at Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige and saying, why aren't we getting that? Well, you have to remember, Marvel didn't just open the door one day and start doing billion-dollar movies. They built up. They had terrible Incredible Hulk movies for years. Blade wasn't as much of a success as they wanted it to be.
With great directors too. Ang Lee directed Incredible. I was a huge fan of Incredible Hulk growing up. I used to collect those comic books, and I actually auditioned for Ang Lee for a part in that, which I did get. I just couldn't do it because I was busy with other things. But looking back on it, I was like, that's not my Incredible Hulk.
No.
As great as he is, it wasn't my Incredible Hulk. It wasn't until Edward Norton I started to really like the franchise.
And even then, Edward Norton left the project. The studio had creative differences with Edward Norton himself, so they recasted him as Mark Ruffalo. You know
Now
what I mean?
I've heard that Ed is difficult, but like I look at it in a good way. He's just an artist with a real vision, and he's really bent on realizing that
Yeah.
vision. And sometimes he'll go into the editing room and and take over.
Yeah.
From what I understand, but
Yeah. Well, that's he wanted to do it. Like he was rewriting lines and like, just overstepping because Marvel Studios is very much a machine.
mhm.
They produce the same formula every single movie. It's the same structure. It's the same style movie. They do a lot of previs, so I'm sure like for Supernatural, I'm sure they don't do a lot of previs, or at least maybe some of the action sequences or some of the CGI is previs. But for Marvel Studios, they previs this whole movie. And then by the time the director comes on board and gets on set, the movie's already made pre-visually.
Mm.
And all they have to do is turn that into real live action shots. Their directors, like I would say, to direct a Marvel film, like it would be good for you if it was your introduction into the industry, right? Because you don't really do much except you learn how to control a set, talk and direct actors. Like though that's where it's good for Marvel, but they're very much set in their ways. And with Edward, kind of looking for a little bit more.
They had a real artist.
They had a real artist. Yeah. But listen,
well, his way of doing things has worked for me. I've always liked his work. There's never an inauthentic moment.
Oh, I love Edward. I really do.
Good job, Ed. Good job.
Yeah, good job, Ed. But so I guess the moral of the story is like, I would always fight for someone's creative freedom, or like if you hire this person, like Zach's doing this for free, right? He's not making more money. He already got paid for Justice League. So he's doing this as a way to stand up for the director's creative freedom, or freedom in Hollywood especially. And he's doing it for the fans that put so much work and effort into it. And Zach's very good about his time, going on different shows like ours, someone else just like us, yada, yada, yada. So he's just a good guy. And, I would say the same about you, because you're also a genuine person that I enjoy talking to. And I can't say enough about you guys. Like people, like it's when you meet someone like yourself or Zach and you realize you're no different than you're just probably make a little bit more money than I do, right? You're the same. You're a human being at the end of the day, right? And we're all in this life together. And, we the toxicity and the negativity, they are always front and center, right? Somehow, especially with social media. But we need to be careful because, it's becoming a cold world, and I don't want to see that happen. It's becoming really like, you wake up and you look on the internet and like everyone's attacking each other. It's scary,
I couldn't agree more, and that's one of the reasons I choose to be very active on social media, fighting this kind of crap and trying to insert and assert a little rationality into the argument. What's weird is that we're talking about Zach. I had just sent Zach a package. I don't know him personally, but mm-hmm. I was introduced to two fantastic writers, Jacqueline Schumann and Jennifer Buoni, and they have reimagined a classic American work, and they've structured out literally a 3-year limited run series, and the pilot episode is fantastic. Ooh. And I'm trying to help produce this thing. And so I actually sent a package off to Zach. I had no idea that he was in the midst of this terrible turmoil, professionally and personally. So
yeah, I think he's the grief. I don't think the grief of losing a child will ever go away, but he is, he's seems a little bit better now, and at least moving forward, instead of like, because when you lose someone that close to you, you get stuck in a rut for a while, but it seems like he's over that part of it and moving forward, which is good to see. Would you ever consider, like, I know this is like a weird thing, but would you ever consider like joining that superhero thing, like whether it's a literal superhero role or maybe someone who's a regular human in those worlds. Like, could you ever see yourself working for Marvel or DC?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. Sure, that would
All
be
right,
great.
I'm gonna
It'd be an
start
honor.
petitioning for that. Mark Pellegrino at Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
So I was telling you to transition a little bit from the dreary stuff. I have asked a few fans of the show and of yours to submit some questions that we could talk about together. They're a way that we can. I don't have to think too hard about asking you things, and we can just get to talk about them. So
Yeah.
I was gonna start. I was gonna end it with this, but I figure since she was here now, we could start it with this little video submission, and maybe you could answer it for Haley.
Okay.
All right. So her name is Haley Gamble, and she is a huge fan of yours. Let me change the background so that it doesn't mess up. There we go. All right.
Haley, and I am from Seattle, Washington. And I just wanted to start off by saying what an incredible opportunity it is to get to communicate with you. I have been a fan of you even before the show, in between filming, after the show. You are such an incredibly talented person who can really work any character flawlessly, which leads me to my question. How did playing Lucifer and getting cast as Lucifer in Supernatural challenge you as an actor? Because you made it a whole new brand show, and you brought such a light and such an aridness. And I was just curious if that challenged you in any way, because it's nothing like you've ever done before it or after it. And so I was just curious. Thank you so much, and I love you guys.
Thank you, Haley.
So she asks. Actually, I kind of forget the question already. I'm that slow.
Yeah.
Oh, how did?
I feel you. No, she asked me how playing Lucifer challenged me.
That's right.
Usually that's me. Usually I'm the guy who forgets the question right out of the box. Thank God it's you.
Oh my God. Thank you. You're here. So how did the role of Lucifer challenge Mark Pellegrino?
I think the challenges were different every season because Lucifer was slightly different every season. And the first season was about making an archetypal, massively huge character human, and simple and honest and accessible, right?
Right.
It's like to me, Lucifer is the Hamlet of the supervillain world, right? It's a character that lots of actors have played. They put their own signature on it, and there's really no ceiling to how big you can get with it. It can become sort of declaimy and large and posturing, or it can be something else. And since the show is ultimately about family and family dynamics, I decided to go small with Lucifer, but have a big internal life. And that's a challenge, to go simple and honest and yet project the kind of stature that Lucifer has. Luckily, the story ends up doing a lot of work for you, and the audience is acting a lot for you. So you just almost have to show up and do the things in the script, and the audience goes with it. After Lucifer made an appearance in Sam's head, though, he became the impish, smaller, less grand, sort of clownish Lucifer that was more sort of the butt of his own jokes.
Yeah.
I would say sort of that narcissist that is very grandiose and is unaware of how little power they actually have. And so there was always it was sort of funny to see the threat and possibility juxtaposed with, what always really happened, which was he always lost. And then there was Nick, who was a different kind of monster. I mean, Nick was an interesting evolution for Lucifer, because he was a normal guy who started out with a very sympathetic story and a very human desire to avenge the death of his family, which turned into a power lust, which turned into an affair with darkness, and that was an interesting dynamic to play as well. So I'd say there are 3 shifts in the character of Lucifer, all of which presented their own unique problems. Like when you're being campy and fun, it does definitely risk being over the top, but I hope I have enough sense of truth to keep it anchored, even though it's larger than life somewhat. I have an internal bullshit monitor that keeps going too far. And then there's it's not really a challenge, it's more of a perk when you get to play a character who has no real physical consequences to anything they do. It's nihilistic, but it's a little bit liberating because you can do anything. You can do anything.
Literally. I don't. So, like, for instance, I don't know which Lucifer I like more, or the introduction like when you first entered the show as a physical being, well, physical in its own sense, but or when you were a manifestation or a in Sam's mind. I don't know which one I liked more, because you were so great at bringing the character to life. You became like Sam and Dean were always right, always great. They were always, what people came back for. But truly, like when you were the villain of the series, it was different. Like there was a sense that something was bad, like not bad in a good way, right? Like there was actually a sense of danger. Later villains, obviously, like I think they could have been done better. But when you were the villain that was like end game, right? Because I believe they were supposed to end after your run. The show was originally intended to end after your battle with Michael. So it was like when you guys came back and you were a part of Sam's mind. That Lucifer was fun to watch. But the Lucifer that you started with was like definitely like the most scary, and I loved how your story arc throughout the years, because you truly did something with Lucifer that I mean, there's another Lucifer on CW that I can't really watch. It's not my thing. It's like a Lucifer show, which there's like a legit. I'm sure right? The Tom what is it? Tom Ellis is Lucifer.
Oh, that's on Netflix now, right? That was Fox, and then that's on Netflix.
I thought it was CW. Maybe it wasn't.
Did the CW get it? Did the CW pick
No. I could be totally wrong. I really could. I never really watched it. That's why it wasn't my thing. But like that Lucifer, like it was like very campy, and it was like stereotypical Lucifer. Whereas you brought something to the character I'd never seen before, and I just like. When you're on screen in Supernatural, there's a sense of terror, or like you're the dude in the room that is 3 steps ahead, but wants you to think something that you're not as smart as you are. It was just great. I loved your interpretation. Would you ever be interested in coming back? I know it's a weird question. I know it is a weird question, and it's going to take some time. I don't want Supernatural to come back anytime soon, because I want the weight of the finale to live for a while. But maybe 5 years down the road, when people need it again, would you ever consider a return?
I would love it. I mean, I would love it.
Right.
If the powers that be are thinking the same thing, I'd be in for it. Sure. When you played a character for that long, it becomes a part of you. And
it was Netflix and Fox.
Yeah, so it was Netflix, Fox. That was right. Yeah, it becomes a part of you, and when you don't get to do it anymore, it's like losing a good friend in a way.
Yeah.
And Lucifer's not exactly. I wouldn't call Lucifer a good friend. He's certainly not faithful or loyal to anyone. But I felt like I loved him.
I loved Lucifer. I did. Every time you made an appearance later on in the series, like those are the episodes where I was like, you know what I mean? I would like if you were in the preview, like, right, because there, especially when Mary was, when you guys went to the multiverse world, when you went, through the tear in the earth. Like those episodes, I would literally make events out of those episodes. Like I would order pizza. I would sit down with my little brother because we watched it together, and we would just be like, "Yes, like he's back." You really did something. You united, and this is why I have such thanks you to the cast of Supernaturals, because at a time in my life, like there were times in my life where I was maybe drinking too much, or I don't know, just, I had my own issues. And what Supernatural did for me was it allowed me to escape for a couple hours, whether, something was happening on in my life, or work was tough that day, or, my mother, yada, yada, yada. Supernatural always made me feel good. And it made me feel free, and I could escape for an hour or so. So that's what you guys did it so well. And I wish the show never ended. It's one of those shows where if it went my whole life, I would have been fine with that.
I agree with you. And I think, there's a lot of great TV out there now. A lot of great TV, but you just don't quite get, you could correct me if I'm wrong. You may be more familiar with a lot of the stuff out there than I am, but you just don't quite get the family bond, the heroism, the defiance of God, even to do the right thing. I mean, those are very empowering characteristics to see. And if you can meld with those for an hour, I can see how it can make you feel better.
Yeah, and whether it was like the family, because family was a big part of Supernatural. The relationship between Sam and Dean, the relationship between Sam, Dean, and Cass, or just the relationships in that show were so strong, and they were so, they had been built for so long that there was like as a fan watching, you felt a part of it. Whereas a random show on Netflix, it comes and goes, right? Mm-hmm. You don't get attached to it like you did with Supernatural or the shows pre-streaming. I called it pre-streaming shows that like really needed to find an audience. Now on Netflix, you can kind of make whatever you want, throw it out there, and someone will always watch it because, especially right now with the pandemic, all content is treated like a holy grail, which is a good and bad thing. But the shows that came out before streaming, they really did have it a little bit harder because people were like, you'd have to like hear it from someone or read a review in like a newspaper, or the start of the internet. It was just a different time, and Supernatural is one of the shows that I think was timeless. I'm gonna watch it with my kids 20 years from now, so I think the moral of the stories and the underlying themes are always going to be relevant.
Yeah, and you know what? There's something to just the anticipation of waiting for a new show each week.
Yes.
I mean, it's great to have these streaming shows where you can binge watch an entire season, in 2 days. That has its own special qualities to it, and you can binge watch it multiple times. But I don't know, man. I sort of dug the idea of waiting breathlessly between shows, and just it became an event, like sitting down for the show became an event. And that's part of what I think makes it so meaningful to you and to fans, because you're sitting down, you're like, friends come over, family come over, we're getting the pizza out, we're gonna watch the boys take on the universe. And and that was something. Events are good. We need events.
What you should try to get on is because Eric Kripke brought Jensen to the boys, with also has there's Jim. a lot of Jim. So there's a lot of Supernatural alum on that show. You should throw your hat in the ring for that. A lot of people. This is a question I got multiple times actually, was, would you ever try out or try to be in the boys? That show has broken barriers, and it really is a special show. It's very graphic. They're not afraid to toe the line on what's appropriate for television. I think it would be good for you.
I love The Boys.
Okay.
All right. I binged watched both seasons, and I'm probably going to revisit it again in a few days. You know what there's a lot of cynicism in it, of course, but the great thing I love about it is it flies in the face of the superhero genre. I was starting to feel like, wow, it feels like humans are having a real difficult time with heroism, and the only beings that they can see doing heroic things are superheroes, and the rest of us are just sort of fallen. But then I saw this show, and it's like, wow, it's great. There's a complete reversal. The superheroes, these horrible corporate entities that are facades. They're complete frauds, power-hungry, fascistic jerks. And the real heroes are the human beings who are kicking ass, who have the courage to stand up to these people and do what's right. I thought that was really cool. And I'm a fan of Frenchie and Butcher. I love Butcher. And so I want to get in that world again. It feels good to be in that crazy world.
And what's cool is, so Jensen turned down the role of Captain America in the Marvel Universe so he could continue playing I almost called him Sam. So he could continue playing Dean on Supernatural. Wow. And people always wondered what could have been, right? Jensen, a younger Jensen playing the role that Chris Evans took, and when I like the way that it turned out, I'm glad it did. But now Jensen's playing a character named Soldier Boy, and he's pretty much like a parody. You know how like Homelander's like a parody Superman?
Uh-huh.
Well, Soldier Boy is a parody on Captain America. So like we're getting like the best of both worlds now. So Jensen is playing, the role that everyone always wanted to see him in, or the role that what could have been with Captain America. We're going to get to see him kind of in that style. And I think Kripke did it, or at least asked him to do it for a reason, because because of what happened, pre-2011 with the Captain America role. And I don't know, I've obviously never met him, but Eric Kripke seems like a really knowledgeable, and he understands what audiences want.
I would imagine so. I mean, his first show out of the box was Supernatural, and I think it was the first show he ever pitched.
Yeah,
and it was a grand slam home run. And now, hold on, I got to put my dog down.
That's
and
okay.
now, come here, buddy. You can go down.
Hi.
There he goes. He wants to get a drink, I think. and now, I think The Boys, wasn't that the #1 streaming show on Amazon Prime? I think it
100%.
It broke all the records. As it should. It's a great show. I loved it. The acting was great. The stories are great. The villains are just despicable, and you really want the heroes to win, and the whole world is sort of inverted and turned upside down. So it makes us think about our premises, and I like that, man. Yeah. I like that a lot. So he knows how to tell a story, evidently.
Yeah. And the Boys comics weren't like that. It's not that they weren't popular. It's just they didn't sell like crazy. And the way Amazon has turned it into like a global phenomenon, like people literally, I finished that show, The Boys, when season 2 dropped. Like I would be waiting up at 2 a.m. for it to come on, because I wanted to be, I wanted to watch it right away. The fear of missing out took over, and I was like, well, if I don't watch it at 2 a.m., I'll never see it. As if that was a true thing, like a weirdo.
Well, I was doing the same thing. I mean, I started going through season 2 when they were still in the middle of filming it. So they were dropping a new episode every week. Yeah. I think the last 3 episodes I saw were in real time. And I was dying every time to get on there and see that new episode. They did a great job with it. So I can't wait to see if Jensen turns out to be if he converts.
Yeah.
And what's her name? What's the name of the superhero that converted to The Boys?
Starlight.
Starlight. Yeah.
Starlight.
Right?
Starlight. So she's more. Yeah, she's on. She was like the inside man, if you will, for them. And so Jensen's character, it goes through a lot of different things. Like in the comic book, Homelander Homelander has sex with Soldier Boy. So like, yes, like really weird, really weird. So like, I'm like,
is it consensual?
It's in like a way. So it's to put it in context, like it's a weird scene, but it's out of trying to get something to do someone to do something. So it is consensual in a way, but okay. It's a weird scene, and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that in live action. So I don't know if I want to see that part of it. Not that it like I'd be like, oh, not that that's not okay. It is okay. I'm just I don't know if the story needs to go that far on this one.
I want to see it. I want to see what happens.
Jensen
I want to see what that if it's love, if it's just another corrupt thing on that Homelander's doing. Homelander's a complicated character.
So complicated. Listen, you need to get on that show. We're gonna start that. That's the one. That's the. We don't even need you at Marvel or DC. This is the show that makes the most sense.
I agree with you. Is this an Image comic or Vertigo? What is this?
Was it a Vertigo? Was it, or was it Dark Horse? Because I didn't read I never, like, The Boys was new to me. I read comic books all my life, but I read them when I was younger, right? So The Boys was not a comic book that I ever knew about because it was so violent and so graphic. It was like Watchmen, where my mother would never buy me that. So I never got introduced to the character.
I should, I saw The Boys on the shelf of a comic book store in Vancouver, and I should have grabbed it. I was looking for new comic books to read, and I was like, this looks very interesting. Now, I think I went for 100 Bullets or something, which I think is a great comic book series.
Dynamite makes it, which is a company I really don't even know. They're
oh wow, okay. I don't know
so not even like, it's not even one of the sub ones. Like, there's Marvel and DC, and then there's like, Dark Horse and all the like the sub ones, but I don't know. I've actually never really even heard of Dynamite. But so I have a couple more of the questions, except for these ones. I'm gonna have to share the screen and we'll go through them together. Can you see these? I'll read them out loud.
Yeah, they're a little too small for me.
Okay, I'll read the ones that I picked out loud.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna read their Twitter handle. And so Jack Pierre was the one who brought up The Boys originally. So we've kind of answered that one already. But Ellie asks, okay, so what's her handle? At Ellie_May_B asks, okay, I'm going for backstory. What was the first time you ever got up on stage, performed, and how did it go?
The first time I know Ellie. She's a writer. That's why she's doing that.
Oh.
The first time I ever got up on stage and performed, I was in 4th grade, and we were doing a play about the settling of California, because 4th grade in America was the year that we did California history, way back when. And I was playing Father Sarah, who was like a Franciscan, I think, monk who settled a few missions in California, I think even the mission in San Fernando. Mm-hmm. And one of my best friends was playing someone else. I don't remember who. And I was out on stage with him, saying my lines, and he was saying his lines. And he had this stupid expression on his face for some reason. I don't remember why. And I just started to laugh, and I couldn't even get my lines out. I was laughing so hard at how silly he looked. And I don't even know if we finished that part of the play. This was in public, by the way. There were people watching this show. I laughed so hard, I went backstage, and at the time, the 4th grade teacher was Mrs. Roth. I'll never forget her. She was abusive. I don't think she would work a day in public education today. She was the type that would hit you.
Oh man.
And so she grabbed me by the ear and yanked me off stage and down the aisle. in public by the ear, out the door, lecturing me the whole way about how terrible I did. So that was my first theater experience. I had a genuine reaction and I was punished for it.
Oh my God. That's like, and that's the craziest part is like, my uncles and stuff, they'll like tell me stories about how teachers used to be. It's like, imagine the people of today's world live like having to go back in time, like to when you were in school, when these things happened. Like, I don't think half of the people that are around right now, right? Those very, they get offended easily. I'm not saying that, I'm not like making fun of anyone, but like they'd be in for a rude awakening if they had to go live like when you were in school, like getting hit in school just because you're a lefty, right? They're trying to make you right-handed.
The Latin word for left is sinistra, so it was considered sinister. It was a sign of the devil that you were left-handed in times not so distant past. They used to train lefties to write with the right hand,
right?
Because it was sinful. Yeah, that very same teacher I remember broke up a fight in the classroom with a set of keys. She had this macrame handle on a set of keys, so she could swing the keys around like a freaking pair of nunchucks. And she hit this kid right over the head with those set of keys. I'll never forget that. And they had the paddle at the time. The principal had a wooden paddle with holes in it, and if you were bad enough in the eyes of a teacher or administrator, you were taken to the principal and you had your bare ass whooped by somebody.
Right. Yeah, that's what my uncle told me is he had a nun as a teacher when he was in school, and he's a lefty. So every single day for, 2 or 3 hours that the teacher would make him write with his right hand. And if he tried to change and use his left hand, they would slap him with a ruler in the hand over and over until he like naturally just turned himself into a righty because he didn't want to get hit anymore.
That's horrible. That's horrible. But if you think about it, as terrible as that nun was, he ended up working his brain in a way that, he probably ordinarily wouldn't have done. So it's actually very good for his brain, bad for his spirit and self-esteem.
Right. And that's the part that can be scary is, abuse and being abused. But it was totally a different world. Totally a different.
I'll tell you a quick story because I did go to a Catholic high school. I went there for a reason. I had to work to pay for my own books because my mom, didn't have enough money for that, and she really sacrificed to send me to this Catholic school. But our dean of men, that's what he was called because it was an all-boys school, was a former cop, and his name was Mr. Stocks. I can say this now because I think he's passed away. But he was one of the scariest people in the world, and he was the one who had the power to give you a whooping if you did something bad. In Catholic schools, even though in 1979, 1980, even though public schools had sort of phased out corporal punishment, it was still fine to do it in these Catholic private schools. They could fly below the radar, and everybody was terrified of getting their ass whooped by Mr. Stocks. And Mr. Stocks would patrol the hallways and look into the classrooms through the rear windows, the rear doors, and look in the classroom to see if anybody was,
right,
doing anything bad. And I remember we were taking a test in geometry class, and I guess Mr. Stocks saw somebody cheating because all of a sudden the back door flew open, and in those days the chair was connected to the desk as a single unit. The whole desk and chair unit and the kid got sucked out of the door, and the door shut like a horror movie. The kid screaming, being dragged all the way down. We could hear him, his screams getting fainter and fainter as he was dragged down the hall into the dean's office, where he probably got a whooping. That was one of the most formidable experiences I've ever had.
That's yikes!
Straight out of a horror movie.
That is literally straight out of a horror movie, though.
Yeah,
terrible. Yeah, I don't know if I would even survive back then. So I have this one here that I'd like to do. The screen sharing thing is I should have made specific banners like with the thing rather than the share the screen, because I'm not liking this. But now I know for next time, you live and you learn.
I'm your guinea pig.
I didn't like. See that's unpreparedness though for the best of it too. Rose Richards at the Rose Richards asks, what is this is a question that I should have I wanted to ask you the first time around, and I'm glad that she brought this up. What is your honest opinion about the 9-minute appearance of Lucifer in episode 19? Because for me, it would have made sense to have Lucifer on Team Free Will, like the Team Free Will team. And then I asked her, I said, wait, you're talking about the final season? And she said, yes. So like, have you watched that? Because last time we talked, I don't believe you had watched the season finale or the series finale.
No, I hadn't watched. I still haven't watched the season finale. I just know about it. It was definitely. I mean, it was a welcome thing for me to come back because I didn't think I was going to. So it was a pleasant surprise. But I certainly didn't understand it.
Right.
And I actually played quite a bit with some of the scenes, and I was a little bit disappointed that some of my improvisations didn't make it into the final cut. One of the things I did. Ooh. One of the things I did was, I call Michael a cuck, which I thought was funny, and I played with that a lot. Which they sort of cut a lot of this out. Like I kept fucking with him.
Yeah.
On my takes, I'd fuck with him a lot more. And when he kills me, spoiler alert, guys, Michael kills me. For anybody who hasn't seen episode 19, when he kills me, I actually looked at him before, I opened my mouth and Lucifer goes flying out. I actually looked at him and said, "You're still a cuck," as I was before I died. And I really liked that. I wish they kept that in because, you know how Crowley said, even when he loses, he wins. Well, Lucifer is sort of that defiant guy too. So even if you've beaten him, he's going to figure out a way to come out on top. And I thought that was a perfect way to end Lucifer.
Yeah, and I mean, so for at least from my perspective, is Lucifer will never truly be gone, and there's so many ways that he could be brought back. That like when that did happen in the episode 19, I was just like, you know what? I know that if this show comes back, you're a character that they would definitely want to be back. So the supernatural always finds a way, right? It's literally in the name, supernatural, right? We're gonna this isn't. We can play with certain things here. I know that they would bring you back. I wouldn't have mind seeing Crowley come back, Mark Sheppard. I wouldn't mind seeing. I mean, there are a lot of characters actually that I wouldn't mind seeing come back. But I think what was most disappointing about the series finale and the finality of the series was that they didn't get what they wanted. What we had heard that they wanted to do is they wanted to bring back a lot of these people, maybe not even to be in the episode, but to be on that bridge that day when they took that final picture. There were a lot of people missing from that were influential to this series that couldn't be there because of this pandemic. I wouldn't have minded if they waited for those last 6 episodes, if they waited another year. I made it like a little mini series, like a final season mini series of 6 episodes, but filmed it the way they wanted. But I think obviously they would have had to keep the sets for another year, pay the actors again. So it comes down to greed.
Massive logistical issue for sure.
Yes. And obviously I'm saying that from an outsider's perspective when, it doesn't matter what I say or what I think because I'm not paying for it. But I think the fans would have really enjoyed that because when the final episodes got delayed, it was almost like a sign from God. It was like, this show just can't end. That's what it is. It's just the show can't end. That's what it is. So don't end it. Postpone it. If out of everything that got postponed this year, if Supernatural was in that category, I would have been happy because it would have meant I got to wait, a little bit longer to finally say that the series has ended. So
I feel you. I mean, it sucks knowing that everything has an end.
yeah, it does. Well, I have two more questions because we're
Oh, by
getting
the
to
way,
that.
I know Rose. Hi, Rose. Thank you for the question.
Oh, you
So
do.
two, Ellie and Rose. I know them both.
Are they like friends or
Yeah,
yeah?
yeah. We're guardians.
Guardians. I like
Yeah.
it. I like it. Um, what? So Ali at Ali J 666. I love that Twitter handle, by the way.
Awesome.
She says, "What is your favorite memory of working on Supernatural?"
That's a tough one, man, because the whole time is sort of steeped in nostalgia. So I feel like I look back on the whole experience with fondness, and that means even the bad parts are sort of glossed over in my own mind, and I'm remembering all the good stuff. Um, yeah, I can't pick out any one moment because I feel like just the whole vibe of knowing that I was going up north to work and hang out with a group of people I really liked. And I'm not just talking about the actors; I'm talking about the crew. The people who filmed us and do all the real hard work. I mean, those are the people that are out there sweating their butts off and or in the freezing cold Vancouver snow,
Right.
setting up a shot for 3 hours so that we can act for 15 minutes. Um, I haven't been on a show before where the lines between cast and crew were so indistinct, and I like that. I hate. There can be an element of chauvinism in Hollywood. Chauvinism, I don't know if that's the right word. There's sort of a
I think it is.
separatist thing, or classist kind of thing where above the line and below the line they treat each other differently, and I don't like that. I've never liked that. I've always hated, when they rush the actor to the front of the line of the catering truck. I know they do it because he's in the next shot, but I never take that. It's like, no, you guys have been working here. I've been sitting waiting for my shot, doing my homework and stuff. But you guys are doing physical labor. You need to eat now.
Yeah,
I'll
right,
eat.
right.
Don't worry about it. We'll find time for me. And in Supernatural, there was an unself-conscious melding of everybody with everybody.
Right.
The camera crew. I became friends with these guys, and we would joke back and forth and fuck with each other, and it was great.
Yeah.
And you used to get to know each other so well. Like when Brad was sitting behind the camera, watching me, we'd fuck with each other. But then when he got done and went like this, I knew it was good. I was like, okay,
Right.
we can move on. Brad says it's okay. So it's nice. It's nice to work on, as an actor, you're a vagabond, and you come onto a new set. It's sort of like an orphan being adopted by a new family for a while, and then you move on to something else. That doesn't do a lot for your sense of solidity and self-esteem.
Yeah.
It feels so much better to be in a group that you're around and know for a long time. It helps you feel safe, and because acting is unsafe in a lot of ways. It's a very stressful profession, and a lot is on the line. People are
Yeah.
watching you and judging you all the time, and to feel like you're around a group of people that aren't, so that you have to, in reality, you have to seize your moments and impose your will on, on the moment. But when you're with friends and family, you just are who you are, and it comes out so much more naturally. So I love that, and
So
I miss
much.
that. I'm going to miss that.
Yeah. And I don't know. From an outsider's perspective, like if I had to guess what being on set of Supernatural was like, it's exactly how you just explained it. Like a warm, welcoming family environment, and I'm glad that that's the way it actually was, because too many times in Hollywood or that industry, we see that a lot of it is a show, like from every sense of the word, right? Some people are funny and welcoming on screen, but then in real life they're not, and they're very entitled, and that's a terrible thing. But I've spoken to Kim Rhodes, I've spoken to Jensen one time, and these people, like, they're not fake. You guys are not fake, and that's what I love about you. It got all of you, every single person on that show is you just get what you get, face value, and it's refreshing.
Right on. That's the way to be. It's the only way to be.
So I have the last question. She did a good job of sending me 100 questions in one. So I'm only going to pick a couple out of the 100 that she sent. But it's from Rasha Taylor. She's always, engaging with our show, and she's a huge fan of yours. So, I will end it with that. We'll end it with the fan, questions with that. But I have a couple of hers here. I'm just going to read them to you because I couldn't find them. So she had to message them to me again. First one. So her Twitter handle is at Taylor Rasha. Her first question is, when you filmed Sympathy for the Devil in 2009, did you have any idea how much the audience would love your take on Lucifer? How does it feel in retrospect?
I don't think I've ever done a project where I could tell from the outset that it was going to be really impactful. When I read The Big Lebowski, I was like, hey, this is pretty good, but is it as good as Fargo? I don't know. Of course, now it's far eclipsed that.
Yeah.
And Capote, I thought it was a great script, but I didn't think it was going to be Academy Award nominated giant. It was in competition actually with a similar script that Sandra Bullock was doing. And I think they were filming it in the same city as us, at the same issue, Capote and the In Cold Blood, the murders are in Kansas in 1959. And I thought for sure with Daniel Craig and Sandra Bullock and the people that were populating their cast that we were in trouble. But because we had a first-time director, Bennett Miller, who's now been nominated a number of times for Academy Awards, and we had these great actors, Chris Cooper and Philip Seymour Hoffman and Catherine Keener. But were we going to eclipse this, megastar movie? I didn't think so, but we did. And likewise with Lucifer and Supernatural, I had no idea that this show would have the purchase that it has, and I'm grateful for it. It's a combination of being in the right place at the right time, and I'm very satisfied with the product, and I'm very satisfied with the fan reception for my character and the show.
Right. Perfectly said. All right. So speaking of that, because you kind of touched on it there. So when other actors had to step into the role of Lucifer, like, for instance, when Misha stepped, or Jared, I guess, did you spend time together, like kind of helping them work on mannerisms, or did you just observe each other like remotely? Did you help them when it came to because Supernatural does this a lot where someone else will take over a role for an episode, right? Someone possesses someone, or you possess someone. Did you help them with their portrayals to like make sure everything lined up? Or is consistent?
Now, I think Jared's portrayal of Lucifer antedated mine. So you actually see Jared's Lucifer before you see my Lucifer, right? So he wouldn't have been able to come to me and seen, and nor would he have had my he wouldn't have had my past performance to look at and gauge his from, and his is very different. It's very regal, and from what I remember, very, very princely, and sophisticated.
Because we see him in the Croatoan episode.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So
yes.
Croatoan episode is where we first kind of see it, and then okay. So I remember that would make sense then. Yeah, he wouldn't have been able.
I was a little bit later, and then not much later, but a little bit later. What episode was the Croatoan episode?
So that was season four. No, there's like I'm pretty good. I could literally recite each episode, but I so bad with the numbers and the names.
Yeah, I thought it was the same season that I was in, but it was an episode or two before I made an appearance as Lucifer. I think you might have seen me as Nick. You might have seen the transformation from the window, like the light, but I don't think you saw me yet as Lucifer. I could be wrong, could be remembering it wrong. I don't know. Misha came to me and asked me a bunch of questions. I spent about 3 hours with him, telling him my sort of psychological framework, how Lucifer looked at the world, why I did what I did, my body language and face, and why that was the way it was. It was season 5, episode 4. Is that what that was?
So Mark's Lucifer. So
I'm in 3.
You're in 5x3. But for some reason on this it's saying the Croatoan episode was season 2. That doesn't sound right to me. At least the one that I'm thinking of.
You're probably mixing up names and stuff. Because I couldn't put plots to names myself, except for like 10 episodes I could do that with, but not 300 and something.
I'm like really good. Like if you put an episode on, I'll be able to recite it from start to finish or tell you whatever you want about it. It's like with how many seasons and episodes there are, like some people are so good at like, oh yeah, that was episode 2x8. Oh no, that was 14x10. I'm like, I'm lucky if I remembered what my dog, which pill he needs to take at which hour. I have to like look at the list every single time.
So, poor little guy.
Yeah. I don't know what your house is like now, but we have a second story staircase that goes, it's not our stairs. It's our upstairs neighbor's staircase. And there's no gate. So I let him outside and I was kind of like, I have my back turned, which is my fault. I did have my back turned and he ran up the neighbor's stairs. But when he tried to come back down, it was icy and he slipped all the way down 2 stories.
Oh my God.
The noises that came out of this dog, like I picked him up off of the ground and he couldn't walk. His femoral bone was snapped in half. Which is, anyone who knows anything, the femoral bone is the third, I think it's like the 3rd or 4th strongest and densest bone in most animals. It's where they pivot, where they jump, that's it's a big bone, even in a little puppy. It's one of their thicker bones. So to snap that in half takes a lot of force. And he was smashing him. So he was rolling right down the stairs, hitting it each time on a different stair. By the time he got down to the bottom, I was chasing him down. I picked him up and he bit me probably like 7 times. And this dog doesn't bite, especially doesn't bite me. So he was in such a tremendous amount of pain that when I picked him up out of fear and like reacting to it, I picked him up to bring him inside and get him somewhere. And he was biting me because, he was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, my leg is really hurting right now and you're picking me up. Yeah. So we raised $7,000 in 3 days. And because I'm furloughed right now, so obviously money's like a little bit tight. But the show came into the aid and we were able to bankroll his surgery and his aftercare. Money's still like, they're still trying to charge me for like physical therapy, which is kind of sucks. And all this other stuff that they're saying he needs, which I'm gonna have to figure it out. But this is what I signed up for when I adopted him.
Does he have metal in his leg now, holding it together? Or?
He does. He has screws and rods as of now, and we're gonna have to pay for the screws to come out eventually. But we'll figure that out when we have to cross that bridge. We'll figure that out as well. It's been tough. It really has been.
Poor guy.
Because I had pet insurance for a while, but they never paid for anything. So I stopped paying for it because I was like, I'm putting so much money into this each month, and then to see it never work out, and then all of a sudden this happens. So I kind of screwed myself.
Yeah, it probably helped. It probably pays for itself later on down the line too, when the dog gets older and you have to get lots of procedures.
Yeah. So, and he's my best friend. So,
What kind of dog is he again?
he's a lab and a beagle.
Little buddy.
Yeah, he's a good little boy. I hopefully I can get him in here in a sec. I'll show you. But he's got a scar on his leg. It's been a month since his surgery, so he's still kind of limping and like he's learning to walk on it again and feel comfortable on it. But for the most part, he's like doing his own physical therapy. Like when he's walking for a little bit, like walking around the house, he'll kind of like pull up on it for a minute and then kind of limp for a second and then go back down on it again. And so he's kind of smart. But then again, I was telling you when we were talking earlier that I put his pills in I've been giving him a little bit of wet food and I've been trying to hide the pills in there, but he eats around them.
That's crazy.
I'm like, he's so smart. He's so clever. I hate it. But
luckily, my dogs just scarf. I can put a pill in a dollop of wet food, and they'll just suck that right down.
Yeah, honestly, I got desperate. Like the first day that I had him, and he wouldn't eat anything. I ordered pizza for myself because I wasn't cooking that night, and I took a piece of the cheese and like I wrapped the pills in it, and I was like, you know what? Eat this because I know you're not gonna put it away. Like I know you're not gonna deny this cheese from the pizza. I was like, but I had such a stressful week. I was like, it's only a little bit of cheese. I'm only a little bit of a terrible person. Just eat this, please, because I need you to take this this Percocet. So
yeah, that's better for him. It's okay. We forgive you. We know you were doing it out of love.
Yes. Okay, so last but not least, God, I'm out of breath now. How did you get the role? Like, were you taped or did you audition for Lucifer?
No, I was fortunate. I got a call from my manager who asked me if I would be interested in playing the part of Lucifer for this show called Supernatural. I said, yeah. I didn't even see a script. I just thought,
you're like, I'm in.
Who wouldn't want to play the devil? And I guess it was offered to me by Jeremy Carver, who was the EP at the time.
At the time, yeah.
Who ended up also being the EP for Being Human for the Sci-Fi Channel later on, which I did. I was in every season of that, and that was quite fun as well. So no, I didn't have to audition, and auditions can be such a pain in the ass. It's always great when they think you don't have to go through that awful process.
Right. And that's what I loved about your Lost story. And if anyone like didn't know that story, I can't remember when you were actually on. It was like November, I think, a little bit after November. He like talks about it in length there. But that's a great story, and like the things that had to go right for you to take the role of Jacob is a really fun story.
Right?
It's so crazy. I can't.
I'm an atheist, but I almost believe in gods when
certain things like that
happen. Yeah.
But listen, so I truly like this comes from the bottom of my heart. You when we first started the show, we were like, there were like 5 people that I said to myself, like, I would love to get on here and I would love to talk to, and Supernatural cast made up 3 of those. And that was Jared Jensen and yourself. So for me to get this opportunity, not once, but now twice, it's, I just want to say thank you again, for being the person you are and for doing what you did for me without even knowing. So, you're definitely a good person, and I'm still waiting. So you're gonna have to, when the travel bans or whatever, when it happens, when it goes away, we're still gonna have to have you up and come up this area and go see some cool historic sites. I know you like the history of everything. What is it? American history that you like, or just world history?
I like world history, but I have a specific focus on American colonial histories.
Yeah.
My favorite time in the American Enlightenment, but I love Greek and Roman history too, and those are my highlights, just because I think those were epics that brought the best aspects of humanity forward.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're definitely going to take you up on that offer. And definitely, it's something I would cherish for the rest of my life. And you're a little closer now. So,
Yeah.
listen, Mark, as always, it's always a pleasure. I'm sure you'll be back one day again. I just want to say thank you again for being the person you are.
Thanks, man. You too. And I'm yours whenever you want me here.
Oh, of course.
Thanks,
So with that being said, guys, that is all the time that Mark and I have for you today. I do have another show again tonight at 9 with Liz Wonder, who does a lot of work for charity, and she, has helped out a lot in the Snyder Cut world. That's going to be a fun time. So join us at 9 tonight, and then obviously make sure that you're subscribed or followed to the channel and the podcast. I want to thank you all for showing up today at a weirder hour, but actually I like doing it at 2 rather than 9, because I'm so tired by the end of it that this worked out way better than I had imagined. So thank you guys all for showing up. We will see you a little bit later. Probably, it's going to be a good night. So thank you again, Mark.
Thank you.